There you are. I was hoping you'd come. It's the kind of night that's better with company, even the quiet kind we keep. Outside, the rain is settling in for hours, and in here, nothing is asked of you at all. Not a single thing. Whatever you were worrying about a moment ago can wait until morning. It will keep. For now, there is only warmth and softness and a story that asks nothing but that you close your eyes. There was a village tucked between two gray hills where it rained more often than not. The people there had a quiet saying: when the rain comes, the old house comes with it. No one could tell you when the house was built or by whom. Only that on the rainiest nights, at the far end of the lane, a house would be standing where no house stood by day. Its windows glowed with a soft amber light, warm and inviting, as if someone inside had been waiting a very long time for a visitor. A young man named Elias did not believe the stories. He thought them a comfort for old women and frightened children. So one autumn night, when the rain fell in long silver threads, he walked to the end of the lane to see for himself. And there it was, just as they had said. A tall, narrow house with ivy on its walls and a lamp burning in the window. The door stood open. Not wide, just enough. And from inside came the smell of wood smoke and something sweet, like bread left to cool. "Come in," said a voice, gentle and unhurried. "You must be so tired." And he was. He had not realized until that moment just how tired he was. Inside, a fire crackled low in the hearth. A chair waited beside it, deep and soft, with a blanket folded over the arm. "Sit," said the voice. "Rest. You have walked a long way." Elias sat. The warmth wrapped around him like water. His eyes grew heavy. His thoughts grew slow and soft, like the rain against the glass. And Elias, warm and safe and impossibly tired, let his eyes fall closed. In the morning, the villagers found no house at the end of the lane. Only wet grass and the gray hills and the quiet. But some say, on the rainiest nights, if you walk to the end of that lane, you will see two lamps burning in the window now. Not one. And a second chair waiting by the fire. On the northern coast, where the sea is the color of slate, there stood a lighthouse that had not been lit in 40 years. The keeper's name was Thomas, and he had tended the light alone for most of his life. Every evening he climbed the winding stair, and every evening he lit the great lamp, and the beams swept out across the water like a slow, patient hand. Ships passed safely because of him, though none of them ever knew his name. One winter, the fog came and did not leave. It lay over the water for weeks, thick and gray and endless, and Thomas kept the light burning through all of it. And then, one quiet morning, the fog lifted, and the town below saw that the lighthouse was dark. They climbed the long stair and found the lamp cold, and Thomas gone, and a single letter on the table in his careful hand. "I have kept the light for a very long time," it said. "But the sea has been calling to me softly for years now, and last night I finally understood what it was saying. Do not worry for me. I am only going home." They never found him. But the fishermen say that on the foggiest nights, when a ship loses its way, a light still sweeps across the water, slow and patient and kind, guiding them back to shore. And though the lighthouse has stayed dark all these years, no ship has ever been lost on that coast again. Some say it is only a trick of the moon on the waves. But the old ones know better. The keeper simply found a gentler way to do the thing he always did, which was to watch over everyone quietly and ask for nothing in return. Beneath a still, dark lake in the mountains, there is said to be a village. Not a ruin and not a memory, but a village, whole and quiet, going about its evenings at the bottom of the water. Long ago, before the valley was flooded, people lived there in little stone houses with warm yellow windows. When the engineers came to build the dam, the villagers were asked to leave, and most of them did. But a few, the very old and the very content, said they would rather stay. And so they say, they simply stayed and let the water rise gently over their rooftops and never once stopped tending their fires. Divers who have gone down into that cold lake tell strange and peaceful stories of lamplight glowing far below, of the faint, distant sound of someone humming an old song, of a warmth in the water where no warmth should be. One diver near the very bottom said he saw an old woman in a window knitting by candlelight, and that she looked up at him and smiled and waved him gently back toward the surface, the way you might wave a child back to bed. He went home that night and slept better than he had in years. And ever after, when he could not sleep, he would think of that village under the lake, still and warm and unhurried, where the old ones chose to stay exactly where they were happy and let the whole world rise softly over them and did not mind at all. There is a train that only runs at night on a line that appears on no map. It has no number and no destination written on its side, and it stops only at stations that are otherwise closed and dark. If you are ever on an empty platform very late and you are very tired, you may see its single yellow lamp swimming toward you out of the dark. The conductor is an old man in a gray coat, and he will ask you only one question. Where would you like to go? Not a place, he means. Not a town or a city. He means the feeling you have been trying to reach. A traveler named Marta once boarded that train, worn thin by a long and worried year. I would like to go somewhere quiet, she told him. Somewhere nothing is expected of me. The old conductor nodded, as if this were the most reasonable request in the world, and punched her ticket, and the train slid away into the soft dark. Outside the window, the night unrolled like black silk. There were fields of pale grass bending in the wind, and rivers that shone like poured silver, and small sleeping towns where every window was dark and every soul was at peace. Marta rested her head against the cool glass. The rocking of the train was gentle and endless, and she felt the worried year loosen its grip on her, car by car, mile by mile. She meant to stay awake, to see where the train would take her. But the dark was so soft and the rhythm so kind that her eyes fell closed. And wherever that train was going, she arrived there in her sleep and woke in the morning lighter than she had been in a very long time. In an old town where the streets curl like sleeping cats, there was a clockmaker whose shop was full of 1,000 ticking clocks. He was famous for one strange gift. If you came to him unable to rest, he would take a small brass key from a drawer and wind a single clock just for you and set it ticking very, very slowly. And somehow, wherever you were, your own racing thoughts would begin to keep that gentle time. A woman came to him once, a woman who had not truly slept in months, whose mind ran on and on like a wheel that could not stop. The clockmaker listened and nodded and chose a small clock of dark wood. This one is patient, he told her. It has all the time in the world, and so, tonight, do you. He wound it slowly and set it on her bedside table, and its tick was soft and deep and unhurried, like a heartbeat settling toward rest. That night the woman lay down and listened and felt her thoughts begin to slow to match it. Tick. And a breath. Tick. And a longer breath. The wheel in her mind turned slower and slower, and finally, for the first time in months, it simply stopped, and she slept. In the morning the clock had gone quiet, its work done. And she understood, at last, what the clockmaker had always known. That rest is not something you chase. It is something you let arrive in its own soft time, tick by patient tick. Far out on a moor where the roads forget themselves in fog, there is an inn that appears only to travelers who have lost their way. Its sign has no name, only a painted candle, and its windows are always gold with light. Weary travelers stumble upon it near midnight, half frozen and footsore, and the door always opens before they knock. Inside there is a long table set with warm bread and warmer soup, and a fire that never seems to need more wood, and rooms upstairs with beds so soft they seem to have been waiting a lifetime for someone to lie down in them. The innkeeper is a kind, round woman who never asks where you are going, only whether you are tired, and you always are. You may stay as long as you like, she says. There is no bill here. There never has been. Travelers sleep the deepest sleep of their lives beneath those quilts, and wake to find the fog lifted and the true road clear and close at hand. And when they turn back to thank the innkeeper, the inn is always gone, and there is only heather and open sky and the strange, settled peace of someone who has finally rested. No one has ever found the inn twice. But no one who has slept there has ever felt truly lost again. There was once a woman who lived at the end of a quiet street, and it was said that she collected lost things, not to keep them, but to care for them until they were ready to be found. Her house was full of the gentlest clutter, single gloves waiting for their pairs, keys to doors no one remembered, a child's lost mitten dried by the fire, and people whispered other things too. Lost hours, lost words never said, the heavy, tangled worries that people set down and could not pick back up. If you came to her at the end of a long day, she would sit you by the fire and pour you something warm, and she would say, "Only, what have you been carrying that isn't yours to carry?" And you would find yourself telling her. The small failures, the old regrets, the things you had promised to fix and could not. And as you spoke, she would nod and take each one gently, as if it were a lost glove, and set it on a shelf. "There now," she would say. "I'll mind these for a while. You go and rest." And you would leave lighter than you came, walking home under the stars with your hands empty and your heart quiet, and you would sleep like a stone. The lost things, they say, she keeps until you are strong enough to carry them again, or until you no longer need to. And most of them in the end are never claimed at all. In a walled garden behind a house that had stood empty for years, there grew a garden that only bloomed at night. By day it was ordinary, even a little bare. But when the moon rose, pale flowers opened all at once, silver and blue and softest white, and the whole garden filled with a fragrance that made the mind go slow and calm. A young gardener came to tend the empty house, and the first night he could not sleep, he wandered out into that garden by accident. The scent met him at the gate. It was like warm milk and old books, and the particular smell of rain on summer dust, all of it braided together into something that whispered, "Rest." He sat on a stone bench in the middle of the blooms, meaning only to sit a moment. But the flowers turned their pale faces toward him, and swayed, though there was no wind, and their fragrance deepened, and his eyes grew heavy as stones. He slept there all night, on the cool bench under the moon, and woke at dawn more rested than he had ever been. Every night after he returned, and every night the garden received him kindly, and closed its blooms around him like a mother tucking in a child. He never learned who had planted it or why. Only that some quiet corner of the world had been made, long ago, for the single purpose of helping the weary sleep, and that it was still doing its patient, fragrant work for anyone who wandered in. There is a wide, slow river that has no far bank that anyone has ever seen, and upon it works a ferryman who is older than the river itself. He is not the frightening figure of old tales. He is gentle and a little stooped, and he hums as he pulls his flat boat across the dark and gleaming water. He carries only those who are very, very tired. Not the dead, whatever the stories say. Only the weary, the worn, the ones who have been awake too long inside their own worry. You come to his misty shore without quite remembering how, and he smiles and holds out a steady hand and helps you step aboard. "Lie down," he says, gesturing to the soft blankets in the bottom of the boat. There is a long crossing ahead, and nothing at all for you to do but rest. And so you lie back and watch the mist drift by, and listen to the quiet dip and pull of his pole in the black water, and his low, wordless humming. The boat rocks ever so slightly. The stars, if there are stars, wheel slowly overhead. And somewhere in that endless, gentle crossing, you fall into the deepest sleep there is, and the ferryman poles on, patient and unhurried, carrying you softly through the night toward a morning you cannot yet see, but which is surely, gently coming. On a narrow street in an old city, there is a bookshop that has never once been closed. There is no lock on the door, and no sign in the window, only a warm lamp that burns at all hours, and shelves that rise up and up into a golden dimness overhead. People find it late at night, when they cannot sleep and have wandered out into the cold, and the door is always open, and it is always warm inside, and it always smells of old paper and candle wax and quiet. There is no shopkeeper to be seen, but there is a deep armchair beside the lamp with a blanket over its arm, as though someone had known you were coming. And on the little table beside it, there is always a book already open to just the right page. It is never a frightening book or a demanding one. It is the sort of book that reads like a hand smoothing your hair. You sink into the chair and pull the blanket up and begin to read, and the words are gentle, and the lamp is warm, and the city outside is very far away. And somewhere around the second page, or the third, your eyes begin to close, and the book settles softly against your chest, and you sleep. The bookshop keeps you all night, warm in its golden hush, and in the morning it lets you go, rested, back into a world that feels a little kinder than it did. In a country where the winters are long, there was a little house where the snow sometimes fell indoors. Not cold snow, not wet, a soft, slow, silver snow that drifted down from the ceiling of the sitting room on the quietest nights and settled on the furniture and on the sleeping cat and on the shoulders of anyone who sat there without ever chilling them at all. The family who lived there had long since stopped being surprised by it. They knew what it meant. The indoor snow only came when the house wanted someone to rest. A traveler once sheltered there, a restless, sleepless sort of man who had not been still in years. He sat by the fire, meaning to leave at first light, his mind churning with all the places he still had to go. And as he sat, the first flakes began to fall, silent and silver, drifting down through the warm air of the room. They landed on his hands and did not melt. They settled on his eyelashes, soft as breath. And with each flake, a little of his restlessness settled too and grew quiet and lay down. The snow fell and fell, gentle and endless, filling the room with a hush deeper than any he had ever known, and the traveler leaned back in his chair, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he had nowhere he needed to be. He slept until noon. And when he woke, the snow was gone, and the room was warm, and he found he was in no hurry to leave at all. Every old house, they say, has one door that is a little different from the others. A door that is always slightly cool to the touch, that opens onto a room no one quite remembers building. And every such door has a guardian, and more often than not, the guardian is a cat. There was a gray cat named Ash, who kept such a door in a rambling house by the sea. All day he dozed on the windowsill in the sun. But at night he took up his post before the quiet door at the end of the hall, and there he sat, upright and watchful, keeping something gentle in, or something restless out, no one was ever sure which. The family's youngest child could not sleep one stormy night, and crept down the hall and found Ash at his post. The cat looked at her with his calm green eyes and did not send her away. Instead, he came to her and led her back to bed and leapt up onto the quilt and curled against her and began to purr. And the purr was low and steady and endless, like the sea itself, like a small warm engine made only for the purpose of easing frightened hearts. The storm rattled the windows. But Ash purred on, and the child listened, and her breathing slowed to match him, and the fear went out of her like a tide going out, and she slept. In the morning, Ash was back at his door, watchful and gray. But every night after, when the child could not sleep, he came and purred and kept the dark things gently on their own side of the quiet door. At the bottom of a sleeping town, there was a bakery that opened only at midnight. Its ovens warmed while the rest of the world slept, and its one small window glowed gold in the empty street, and the smell that drifted from it, warm bread and honey and cinnamon, was said to be the most comforting smell in all the world. The baker was a broad, quiet man with flour in his eyebrows, and he baked not for the morning crowds, but for the sleepless. For anyone who wandered the dark streets with a mind that would not rest, there was always a warm roll and a cup of something sweet set out on the sill, free for the taking. Sit, he would say, if you lingered. Eat. There is nowhere you have to be at this hour. And you would sit on the worn bench by the warm oven and eat the soft bread and feel the heat of the oven soaking into your tired bones and hear the gentle sounds of the baker working, the soft thud of dough, the scrape of the peel, the low crackle of the fire. And it was the coziest sound in the world, that quiet work in the warm dark, and it wrapped around you like a blanket. Many a sleepless soul has dozed off right there on that bench, lulled by warmth and bread and the patient rhythm of the baker's hands. And he lets them sleep and covers them with his own coat and bakes on softly through the night, so that no one who cannot sleep should ever have to be cold or hungry or alone. There is an island that does not stay in one place. It drifts slow as a dream across a warm and gentle sea, and it cannot be found by anyone who is looking for it. It finds you, instead, when you most need to rest. Sailors speak of it in low, fond voices. They say you wake one calm dawn and it is simply there, off the bow, green and soft and welcoming, with white sand and swaying palms, and a silence so deep it hums. There is no danger on the island, no task, no trial, nothing to be won. There is only a hammock, strung between two trees, swaying in a breeze that smells of salt and flowers, and the sound of small waves folding endlessly onto the shore. You climb into the hammock, and it holds you like a cupped hand, and the palms whisper overhead, and the waves keep their soft and endless time, and you rest. You rest as you have not rested in years. The island asks nothing of you. It simply drifts on through the calm, bright sea, carrying you gently while you sleep, and when you wake, restored, it lets you go, and slips away over the horizon to find the next weary soul who needs it. No one ever finds the drifting island twice, but everyone who has slept there carries a little of its peace inside them forever after, a small green quiet place to go to whenever the world grows too loud. In a great and drafty house there lived a painter who painted only empty rooms. Not people, not landscapes, only rooms, quiet and still and full of a soft gray light. Sitting rooms with the fire burned low. Bedrooms with the covers turned down. Kitchens where the kettle had just gone off the boil. His paintings were famous for a single strange quality. Anyone who looked at one for long enough began, helplessly, to yawn, to grow calm, to feel, deep in the chest, the particular longing to lie down in that painted room and rest. A collector once bought his greatest work, a painting of a small bedroom at dusk, with rain on the window, and a lamp glowing amber, and a bed heaped with soft white pillows. She hung it across from her own bed, in the hope it might help her sleep, for she had not slept well in years. And it did. Every night she would look into that quiet painted room, into its soft gray light, and its rain-streaked window, and its waiting, welcoming bed, and she would feel herself drawn into it, softer and slower, until she could no longer tell where her own dim room ended and the painted one began. And she would lie down in both at once, and pull the covers up in both at once, and sleep. The painter, when asked his secret, only shrugged. "I paint rooms that are waiting for someone," he said. "Everyone in the end is tired. Everyone is looking for a quiet room to lie down in. I only leave the door open and let them find their way inside." High in the mountains, past the last village and the last road, there is a small stone chapel that keeps no faith but one. It is the chapel of the sleeping traveler, and its single bell is rung, not for prayer, but for rest. The keeper is an old monk who has forgotten his own name, but remembers the name of sleep in 100 languages, and sings them softly, one after another, all through the night. Climbers caught by darkness on the high cold slopes see the chapel's one warm window and stumble toward it and find the door unbarred. Inside there are no pews, only low soft cots and thick wool blankets, and a stove glowing at the center like a small captured sun. "Lie down," the old monk murmurs, in whatever tongue you understand. "You are very high and very tired, and the night is long. Rest now." And he moves among the cots, tucking blankets, humming his 100 names for sleep, and one by one the frozen, exhausted travelers stop shivering and grow warm and let their heavy eyes fall shut. Outside, the wind howls over the peaks, and the snow drives sideways through the dark. But inside the little chapel it is warm and still, and the old monk sings on, soft and low, a lullaby with no beginning and no end, and every weary soul beneath those roof beams sleeps the safe, deep sleep of the truly sheltered, until the sun climbs the mountains again, gold and gentle, and gives them back the clear, bright morning. There was a town that could not sleep until it found its keeper. For years the people of that town had lain awake, all of them, every night, tossing and turning under a restless moon, until they were grey and short and weary with it. Then one autumn a stranger arrived, a quiet woman with a lantern and a long grey coat, and she asked only for a small room at the top of the tallest house, and there she stayed. Every evening at dusk she would climb to the roof and light her lantern and swing it slowly back and forth over the sleepless town and hum a low, wordless tune that drifted down over the rooftops like a warm and settling fog. And one by one, house by house, the lights of the town went out, and the people lay back, and their racing thoughts grew slow, and they slept. They called her the keeper of the sleeping town, and they loved her, though few ever saw her by day. Every night she watched over their rest, swinging her soft light, humming her old tune, keeping the dark and the worry gently at bay, so that no child cried out unheard, and no weary soul lay awake alone. And the town slept, deeply and sweetly, for the first time in living memory. If you are ever awake and cannot rest, they say you should imagine her up there on her high roof, in her long grey coat, swinging her lantern slowly through the dark, humming her endless lullaby just for you, keeping watch so that you too can finally let go and sink and sleep. In a grand old library, where the walls are lined with shelves upon shelves of dusty tomes, the moonlight streaming through the tall windows casts a silver glow on the quiet rows of books, each one whispering its secret tale to the silence that fills the air. The patrons who come to this enchanted place often remark on the feeling of being wrapped in a soft blanket of tranquility as they wander through the hushed aisles, running their fingers over the spines of the volumes, releasing the whispers into the atmosphere. For here time stands still. The clock that marks the passing hours ticks with a soothing slowness, and the midnight visitors who stroll through these quiet halls feel no need to hurry, for in this sacred space all worries are shed like worn-out shoes at the door. The librarian, wise and gentle as a mother hen, moves softly from shelf to shelf, dusting off the ancient pages with care, her touch a benediction that awakens new life into each tale, releasing them to roam free in the dreams of those who read by candlelight on these quiet nights. And so it is not surprising that some claim to see shadowy figures moving among the shelves, not fearful spirits, but rather gentle companions who embody the very essence of stories, come alive, empathy and understanding, forgiveness and love. They flit about, weaving tales of wonder into the fabric of one's soul, reminding us all that we are never truly alone in this world, for in every book there lies a friend waiting to be discovered. And as you too wander through these hallowed halls, may your footsteps become light, your heart at peace. Let the lullaby of pages turning and the gentle rustle of parchment soothe your very essence, carrying you on a soft tide into realms both wondrous and still, where sleep's sweet kingdom awaits, beckoning you to rest. Let your eyelids grow heavy now, as if weighed down by the words that have become whispers in your mind, and slowly, like a book closing, allow yourself to drift away, lulled by the soothing calm of this mystical library. In the mist-shrouded mountains, where the air was alive with the sweet scent of blooming cherry blossoms, there stood a humble tea-house, its wooden beams worn smooth by generations of gentle hands. The tea-master's name was Kaito, and he had spent his life tending the fires that burned within its stone hearth, coaxing forth fragrances as subtle as moonlight and tastes as rich as forest loam. As dusk fell on these misty mountains, a soft silence began to unfold, like a blanket of silk, softly enveloping all it touched. And Kaito would take his place behind the tea counter, his hands moving with the precision of a dreamer, measuring out the perfect balance of leaves for each pot that steamed its way into the stillness. As he poured, the steam would rise like mist from a secret pool, wrapping itself around the faces of those who sat at the low tables, their eyes closing as one by one they yielded to the peace that filled the room. And in this quiet sanctuary, where time was measured not by clocks, but by the slow unfurling of petals and the soft lapping of water against stone, Kaito would whisper tales of ancient trees whose bark shone like polished ebony, of moonlight-drenched meadows where wild flowers bloomed with colors that defied the palette of dawn and dusk. He spoke in a voice as gentle as the mountain breeze, weaving words into a tapestry that wrapped itself around the hearts of all who listened, soothing away the tangles of the day, calming the troubled mind, quieting the busy heart, until all was still except for the soft hiss of steam and the distant lapping of water against stone. And as the night deepened, like a promise kept, the mist would grow thicker, veiling the tea-house in its silvery folds, hiding it from the world outside, where the moon was rising over the mountains, a silver crescent shining softly through the veil of mist, casting an ethereal glow on all that lay beneath. Deep in the heart of winter, where snowflakes swirled like tiny ballerinas around the sleepy railway station, a lone figure wrapped in a warm coat stood at the ticket counter, watching as the last train of the night pulled out of the platform, leaving behind a faint scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The station master's name was Emma, and she had spent countless evenings alone in this station, her footsteps echoing off the walls as she made her rounds, checking the schedule and ensuring that all was quiet for another peaceful night. Outside, the snowflakes continued to fall, casting a soft silver glow over the deserted platform, illuminating the few scattered lights that still flickered within the station's windows like fireflies on a summer evening. As Emma settled into her routine, she noticed a young traveler, shivering with cold and bundled in layers of mismatched blankets, making their way towards her. Without a word, Emma gestured for the traveler to follow her, leading them through the quiet corridors and into the tiny waiting room, where a small fire crackled on the hearth, filling the space with a warm golden light that seemed to seep deep into the bones of all who entered. As they sipped steaming cups of tea together, Emma began to sense that this traveler was not just any ordinary soul, but one whose path had been guided by the whispers of winter itself. For as she looked out at the swirling snowflakes, Emma felt an inexplicable peace settle over her, a feeling that echoed through every cell of her body and reminded her of the countless nights spent wrapped in this same quiet stillness, watching over this railway station as it slumbered. And so, with a gentle smile, Emma offered the traveler a soft blanket to wrap around their shoulders, and together they sat in silence, surrounded by the lulling hum of snowfall outside, until at last their eyelids grew heavy, and the world beyond receded into a soothing blur, like a painting left unfinished on an easel, waiting patiently for the morning light. In a greenhouse hidden among the treetops, where morning sunlight filtering through the leaves created dappled patterns on the glass, the plants slumbered quietly. Their gentle hum of breathing and the soft rustle of their leaves in the breeze were the only sounds that broke the stillness as they rested in the warm, fragrant air. The walls of the greenhouse were covered with a tapestry of leaves and vines, like a verdant cloak wrapped around the sleeping world inside. Petals unfolded from buds on the flowers, releasing delicate scents into the night air, but their movements were slow and languid, as if they too were dreaming. In the center of the room, a large palm tree stood tall, its trunk strong and sturdy, its fronds stretching upwards like outstretched arms embracing the ceiling. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming orchids and the soft perfume of ripening fruit, drawing all who entered into a state of deep relaxation. As night deepened, the shadows within the greenhouse grew longer and darker, but they seemed to bring no fear, only a soothing calm that settled over everything like a gentle blanket. The plants began to stir, their leaves unfolding slowly as they awakened from their daytime slumber. But even in waking, they remained quiet, content, and serene, like islands floating on the surface of a peaceful lake. Their roots sank deeper into the earth, drawing nourishment and strength from the rich soil, while their leaves reached for the sky above, drinking in the cool night air and the gentle rustle of the breeze that caressed them. As the hours passed, the greenhouse grew darker still, but it was not a darkness that filled one with anxiety or fear. Rather, it was a soft, enveloping shadow that wrapped around all within its walls like a mother's loving arms, holding and cradling everything in a deep, peaceful sleep. And as you breathe in the sweet scent of blooming flowers, feel your eyelids grow heavy, your muscles relax, and your mind calm down, like the gentle lapping of waves on a moonlit beach. Let yourself drift into this soothing world, where all is quiet, still, and serene. In the quiet hours of dawn, when the stars were still visible in the sky, and the world was hushed in anticipation of a new day, I would sit on the veranda of our seaside cottage, wrapped in a soft blanket, listening to the gentle rhythm of the foghorn in the distance. The sound was like a lullaby, soothing and calming, a reminder that even in the stillness of night, there is always something more than darkness. As I sat there, I would feel the cool ocean breeze on my skin, carrying with it the scent of salt water and seaweed, and the distant call of gulls searching for breakfast. The foghorn's slow toot-tooting sound seemed to echo through my soul, a gentle wake-up call to greet the day. Our cottage stood nestled among the dunes, its windows and doors painted in soft pastel hues that blended seamlessly with the soft grey of the sea on misty mornings like this one. I'd watch as the fog rolled in off the ocean, a thick blanket of white mist that swirled and eddied in the breeze, hiding everything from view, yet somehow making the world feel more mysterious and enchanting. It was a time for contemplation, for reflection on all that had been and all that would be. The stillness of the foggy morning wrapped itself around me like a warm hug, reminding me of my place within this vast and wondrous world. As I breathed in the salty air, I felt my mind grow quiet, my thoughts slowing to match the rhythm of the waves lapping at the shore. My eyelids began to feel heavy, weighted with the peacefulness of the fog-shrouded morning, and I would lean back into the chair, letting the calm wash over me like a soothing balm. And as I drifted off into a gentle slumber, the last thing I heard was the low, mournful call of the foghorn, fading into the distance, its soft notes weaving themselves into my dreams. In the heart of the old town, where the crooked streets wandered like forgotten paths, there stood a small candle shop that seemed to lean in toward you as you approached, its windows aglow with a soft, golden light. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of melting wax and vanilla, and the gentle hum of a clock ticking away on the wall, its rhythmic heartbeats synchronizing with the pulsing candles that lined the shelves like sentinels guarding ancient secrets. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman named Alara, tended the flames with tender hands, watching as they danced and swayed in the draught from the door, their soft crackles weaving a hypnotic spell around her as she worked. Outside, the city was alive with sound. Car horns honked, people chatted on the sidewalk, and the distant rumble of the river provided a soothing background thrum. But within the shop's walls, all was calm, a haven from the bustling world beyond. As night began to fall, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, Ilara would extinguish the lamps one by one, allowing only a few candles to remain lit, their flames flickering softly like tiny fires of remembrance. The shop grew darker, yet somehow it felt more intimate, as if the very silence itself had become a presence, watching over you with a gentle benevolence. And when at last Ilara locked up and stepped out into the night air, she would pause for a moment on the threshold, feeling the cool breeze stir her hair, before nodding softly to herself, as if in acknowledgment of some unseen companion who stood guard beside her, their combined presence weaving an aura of peace that wrapped around the sleeping city like a soft blanket. As you breathed in the scent of wax and vanilla, your eyelids began to grow heavy, and with each slow exhalation, your worries seemed to slip away like wisps of smoke on the breeze. Let them go, let them fade, as the candle's gentle flames whisper sweet dreams into your willing heart. In the highest point of a venerable monastery, where stone and silence meet the sky, stood an ancient bell tower, its weathered stones worn smooth by countless seasons. Within its walls, a single monk resided, tasked with the duty of ringing the evening bells to guide the monks below back to their dormitories, and beyond that, into the stillness of night. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the stained glass windows, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the stone floor, Brother Ambrose would gently ascend the winding staircase, his soft footsteps echoing through the tower like a lullaby. The bell itself was an instrument of great beauty, its bronze surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. As Brother Ambrose reached the top, he would take up the large wooden mallet and let out the first slow strokes, the deep notes resonating through the tower like a soothing drumbeat. The sound was a call to stillness, an invitation for the monks below to let go of their daily labors and surrender to the peace that came with nightfall. As the final bell tolled, the air within the tower seemed to vibrate with tranquility, as if the very presence of darkness had been woven into the stone itself. Brother Ambrose would then descend back down into the monastery's heart, leaving behind a silence so profound it felt almost palpable, like a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees outside. And in that stillness, one might just hear the faint whisper of distant bells, echoing from some other place and time, their soft chimes blending with the lingering resonance of the last toll, creating an ethereal harmony that seemed to carry on into the darkness like a soft mist, guiding all who listened into the realm of dreams. As you too now breathe in this quiet, let your eyelids grow heavy, allow yourself to be cradled by the soothing melody of the bells, and surrender to the gentle rocking motion of the tower's stones. As the riverboat drifted downstream, its gentle wake disturbing the mirrored calm of the water, I stood at the bow, feeling the misty veil of dawn lift from my skin like a soft blanket. The air was alive with the sweet scent of blooming willows and the distant call of a heron, its melancholy cry echoing across the river's expanse like a gentle lament. The boat's engines hummed softly, their low thrumming heartbeat a lullaby to guide us along the tranquil waterway. As we floated deeper into the morning mist, the shore receded from view, its familiar contours dissolving into the haze like a dream. I breathed in deeply, feeling the moisture of the river air fill my lungs, and watched as the mist began to take on shapes, wispy tendrils that twirled and danced like ballerinas on the water's surface, leaving behind delicate patterns that shimmered and dissolved like moonlight on ripples. We drifted beneath a canopy of overhanging willows, their leafy boughs whispering secrets in the breeze as we slid by. The river itself seemed to be telling a story, its soft, gurgling voice weaving a soothing tapestry of sound that wrapped around me like a comforting shawl. As the sun rose higher in the sky, its warm light seeping through the mist like honey, I felt my eyelids growing heavy, my breath slowing, and my thoughts untangling themselves from the complexities of the world. The riverboat drifted on, an unobtrusive companion to the day's unfolding mysteries, as I surrendered myself to its gentle flow, allowing it to carry me downstream into a realm of quietude and peace. And now, dear listener, as we float through the shimmering veil of dawn, let your own thoughts grow still like the water itself, and allow yourself to drift, carried on the soft current of sleep, toward the tranquility that awaits you just beyond the reach of consciousness. In the heart of a vast desert, where dunes stretched towards the horizon like waves in a silent sea, there lay an oasis so tranquil that it seemed to embody the very essence of calm. Under the light of 1,000 stars, which twinkled with a soft, ethereal glow, palm trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling softly, as if sharing secrets with one another. A small spring bubbled up from beneath the earth, its crystal-clear waters reflecting the starlight and creating a shimmering veil that danced across the sand. In this enchanted haven, a young woman named Ava wandered, her bare feet leaving impressions in the cool dust as she drifted through the night. She walked without purpose, yet felt no sense of disorientation or confusion, for every step seemed to carry her deeper into a state of serenity, one that wrapped itself around her like a soft blanket. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the distant call of nocturnal creatures, but Ava's ears were tuned to a different frequency, one that picked up only the gentle hum of the universe as it wove its tapestry of wonder. And so she walked on, beneath the watchful gaze of the stars, which twinkled in rhythm with her heartbeat, until finally, like a leaf drifting towards its resting place, she came to rest against the trunk of a palm tree, surrounded by an aura of tranquility that seemed to seep into her very being. The night deepened around her, yet she felt no fear or uncertainty, for in this magical oasis, time itself had grown still, and all that remained was the gentle lapping of the star's light against the shore of her soul. Now, as the universe breathes its final sigh of the day, let your own heartbeat slow in harmony with Ava's, and let your spirit settle into the peacefulness of this desert oasis. May your dreams be as soft as the palm leaves, and your rest be as refreshing as a summer breeze on a desert night. On the open plain, where the grass grew tall and the sky stretched out in every direction, there stood an old windmill, its wooden blades creaking softly in the breeze like a gentle lullaby. The owner's name was Ilara, and she had tended to the mill for as long as anyone could remember, keeping it spinning with its own sweet rhythm, day after day after day. Every evening, just before sunset, she would climb up into the dusty loft, her slippers scraping against the wooden floorboards, and watch the light change over the plain, like a slow-moving tide of gold and pink and purple. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Ilara would gently lower the blades to their resting position, and then sit down on the worn stone wall outside, listening to the wind whisper secrets through the empty grasses. The villagers said that on quiet nights like this, when the plain was at its most still, you could hear the whispers of ancient farmers and wild animals, carrying on a conversation that had been going on for centuries. Some said it was just the wind playing tricks, but Ilara knew better. She'd heard the gentle hum of crickets and the soft lowing of unseen cattle, all blending together in a soothing melody that seemed to lull the very earth itself into a peaceful sleep. As night deepened and the stars shone bright overhead, Ilara would wrap her cloak around her shoulders and lean back against the wall, letting the whispers carry her away on their soft breeze, until she too felt the weight of her eyelids growing heavy. And then, just as the world was settling into its own gentle slumber, She'd close her eyes and let the wind's sweet melody rock her gently to sleep. In a secluded glade deep within an ancient forest, where towering trees stretched towards the sky like nature's own cathedral, a hidden hot spring bubbled gently to life. Its waters were said to have been there since the dawn of time, their secrets whispered by the wind through the leaves above. As night began to fall, a faint mist rose from the earth, carried on the scent of blooming wildflowers and fresh greenery, beckoning all who sought refuge to come closer. Within the spring's tranquil surroundings, a lone figure sat in quiet contemplation, surrounded by candles that cast soft shadows on the rocks. The moon was new, its absence allowing the stars to twinkle like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse above. A gentle breeze rustled through the branches, carrying with it the faint hum of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl, a soothing melody that lured the mind into peaceful reverie. As the figure's eyelids grew heavy, their breathing slowed to match the gentle lapping of the spring's waters against its banks. The world outside receded, and all that remained was the sensation of being enveloped in a warm, comforting calm. The sound of dripping water created a soothing background hum, as if the earth itself was singing a lullaby to soothe the soul. In this secluded haven, time lost all meaning, and the passing of hours became mere whispers on the breeze. The stars above seemed to be watching over the figure, their light infusing every breath with serenity. As the night wore on, the mist swirled gently around the glade, a symbol of the mystery that lay beneath the surface, yet somehow felt deeply reassuring. And now, as the world outside seems to fade away, let your own heart beat slow, like the lapping waters against the shore. Let go of all worries and cares, allowing yourself to sink deeper into the calmness that envelops you. Feel the earth's gentle vibrations beneath, a reminder that you are not alone in this peaceful place. As the mist wraps itself around you, let your eyes grow heavy, your breathing deepen, and with each passing moment, allow yourself to drift further away from the world of worries and troubles. In the heart of an ancient city, where the night air is filled with the scent of jasmine and sugarcane, there stood a small, unassuming market that had been open for generations, its wares changing with the seasons, but its charm remaining constant. After the last customers departed and the vendors packed up their goods, a soft silence descended over the stalls, like a gentle blanket spreading across the cobblestone streets. The moon rose high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the market's empty lanes, illuminating the shadows that danced upon the walls and bringing out the soft hum of crickets, providing a lulling background melody to the evening's repose. Amidst this peaceful stillness, a few stragglers remained, lingering like wisps of cloud on a summer morning. A young woman weaving intricate patterns with silken threads, an elderly man softly playing a lyre, and a group of children huddled around a vendor, listening in rapt attention as he spun tales of mythical creatures and far-off lands. As the last stragglers vanished into the night, leaving behind only their faint whispers and the scent of exotic spices, the market took on an enchanted quality, its shadows deepening and lengthening like dark liquid flowing through the streets, until it seemed to be a place where dreams were woven into reality, and where the very fabric of time itself was gently stretched. In this mystical realm, the sounds of the city gradually receded, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves, the distant rumble of thunder on the horizon, and the whispered promise of dawn's arrival, like a gentle breeze carrying the sweet scent of blossoming flowers towards the slumbering souls who now lay wrapped in their own quiet dreams. As the night market slipped into its nocturnal slumber, I invite you to join me on this tranquil journey, allowing your eyelids to grow heavy, your breathing to slow, and your heart to beat in time with the soothing rhythm of cricket's lullaby as we drift gently into a restful repose, carried by the soft whispers of the night towards the sweet shores of sleep. In a secluded valley, nestled between two great hills, stood an observatory that had watched over the night sky for generations. Its wooden walls weathered to a soft silver, its windows reflecting the starry expanse like a still pond. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, and the gentle hum of crickets provided a soothing melody that accompanied the ticking of clocks deep within the observatory's belly. For decades, the astronomers who worked here had gazed up at the heavens through the great telescope, their eyes scanning the velvet darkness for hidden wonders. But it was not the stars themselves that drew them to this place, but rather the silence, a silence so profound that even the soft whisper of a passing cloud could be heard as a gentle sigh. As night deepened and the world outside grew quiet, the astronomers would often step out onto the observatory's patio, wrapped in woolen blankets, and breathe in the stillness. And it was here, surrounded by nothing but the darkness and the stars above, that they felt the weight of their worries lift, like autumn leaves drifting to the ground. The stars, like diamonds scattered across the blackness, seemed to twinkle with a gentle understanding, as if they knew the secret to this quiet, peaceful place. As the clock struck midnight, the astronomers would return inside, their hearts filled with a deep contentment, and settle in for a restful night's sleep, lulled by the steady beat of the universe above. The stars continued to shine, a constant reminder that even in the stillness there is always movement, a gentle rotation, a subtle vibration, a soothing pulse that guides us toward our own quiet moments of repose. And so, as you lie here now, surrounded by your own darkness, allow yourself to breathe in this peacefulness, to feel it seep into your bones and carry you gently on the tides of slumber. In a small village nestled in a valley, surrounded by gentle hills and forests that whispered secrets to each other on the wind, there stood an ancient bathhouse with warm stone floors that seemed to absorb the chill of winter and radiate it back as comforting warmth. The water that flowed from its pipes was soft and silky, carrying the scent of rose petals and lemongrass through the air, and the wooden tubs were carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the candlelight like moonlit pools. It was a place where time itself appeared to slow down, as if the very water molecules had learned to move at a pace more in harmony with the human heart, allowing one to linger and soak up the tranquility like a parched soul drinking from an oasis. On certain evenings, when the sun dipped low enough to paint the hills with hues of apricot and gold, the bathhouse would take on a mystical quality, as if it were a gateway to a realm where worries and cares were left behind, and one's spirit could be washed clean like a leaf in a mountain stream. It was said that on such evenings, a woman named Aria, with skin as pale as alabaster and hair as dark as the night sky, would emerge from the shadows and tend to the bathhouse with a quiet reverence, her hands moving over the stones and water with a gentle precision that seemed almost like a form of prayer. As one soaked in the warm waters, feeling their muscles relax and their mind grow still, they might catch a glimpse of Aria's profile against the candlelight, her eyes closed as if listening to some distant melody that only she could hear, and it was said that those who saw her were forever changed by the experience, carrying with them a sense of peace and calm that would stay with them long after they left the bathhouse behind. And so it came to pass. On certain quiet nights when the world outside seemed to be holding its breath in anticipation of some great event or change, one might find themselves drawn back to this enchanted place, like a leaf returning to its tree branch, where Aria's gentle touch and the soothing waters would conspire to lull them into a deep and dreamless sleep, their soul renewed like a seed planted in fertile soil, ready to sprout anew come morning. In a place where the trees grew tall and close, their moss-covered trunks blending with the forest floor like a soft blanket of green, there stood an ancient shrine, forgotten by the world yet beloved by the creatures that lived among its shadows. A gentle mist clung to the air, as if the very essence of the forest had risen to caress the delicate petals of the wild flowers that bloomed around the entrance, their fragrance carrying on the breeze like a whispered promise. The shrine itself was a simple structure, its wooden beams weathered to a silvery gray, adorned with intricate carvings of leaves and vines that seemed to move in the flickering light of the candles that stood at its four corners. These candles burned with a soft, ethereal flame, casting no harsh shadows, only a warm, comforting glow that seemed to draw one deeper into the heart of the forest. It was said that on quiet evenings, when the moon was hidden and the wind stilled, the sound of gentle chanting could be heard echoing through the trees, a soft, wordless melody that seemed to weave together the very fabric of reality. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving within the shrine, their forms indistinguishable, yet their presence palpable as the air itself. But on most nights, when the darkness was at its deepest and the silence absolute, all that could be heard was the gentle creaking of the wooden beams, a soothing accompaniment to the soft breathing of the forest creatures who slept peacefully within its ancient walls. And it is here, in this mystical place, where the boundaries between worlds are said to be at their thinnest, that I invite you to settle your spirit and let go of the day's worries, allowing yourself to sink into the stillness like a leaf drifting on a quiet pool, carried by the gentle currents of rest and repose. Allow your eyelids to grow heavy, your breathing to slow, as the soft whisper of the forest's lullaby envelops you, drawing you down into the depths of slumber, where dreams are born and troubles fade like morning mist in the rising sun. In a quiet workshop nestled between two great stone houses, the clockmaker sat at his bench, his hands moving slowly as he wound the last of the day's timepieces into gentle slumber. The soft tick-tock of each clock's heartbeat filled the air, blending with the ticking of the clockmaker's own pulse to create a soothing melody that seemed to lull the very walls into calmness. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the floor and illuminating the delicate mechanisms of his clocks with a warm golden light, the clockmaker's eyes grew heavy with weariness, his breathing slowing as he listened to the gentle song of ticking time. In the corner of the workshop, a small ornate music box sat atop an intricately carved cabinet, its lid slightly ajar, releasing the sweet scent of old wood and the faintest whisper of notes from a forgotten melody. The clockmaker's fingers, still moving with a life of their own, began to wind down, his thoughts drifting to the countless hours he had spent crafting each of these timekeepers, imbuing them with a sense of purpose that seemed almost magical in its simplicity. As the last tick-tock faded away into silence, the workshop itself seemed to grow quieter still, until all that was left was an eerie stillness punctuated only by the faint hum of crickets outside and the soft creaking of the wooden clock faces as they settled into their gentle repose. The clockmaker's eyes closed, his chest rising and falling with a slow, measured breath as he let himself drift on the tide of ticking time, carried effortlessly to the shores of sleep by the soothing rhythms of his own creation. In this peaceful place, where clocks stood as sentinels of slumber, all worries seemed to fade away, leaving only the gentle lapping of calmness against the shore of the soul. And so, let your own breath slow, your heart grow quiet, as you join the clockmaker in his restful reverie, slipping gently into a dreamless sleep, where time itself becomes a soft blanket wrapped around your weary form. In the heart of a tranquil lake, where reeds swayed gently in the breeze like nature's own dancers, a floating lantern festival was underway, its soft glow illuminating the still waters. The sky above was painted with hues of twilight, a warm orange bleeding into soft pink, as if the sun itself were reluctant to surrender tonight. On the lake's surface, tiny wooden boats drifted lazily, their sails billowing like delicate wings, each carrying a lantern that cast a peaceful light across the water. As the evening deepened, more and more lights appeared, until it seemed as though the very stars themselves had descended upon the lake. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming lotus flowers. Their fragrance carried on the soft currents, mingling with the faint tang of lake water and the distant hint of wood smoke from the festival's cooking fires. As the night wore on, a sense of peace settled over all who gathered on the shore. Children's laughter and playful shouts slowly gave way to contented sighs and the occasional hushed conversation as families sat together watching the lights dance across the water. The lanterns seemed to be moving in time with the gentle lapping of the lake against its banks, a soothing melody that harmonized all it touched. Souls, boats, and even the reeds themselves seemed to sway to the rhythm of this nocturnal serenade. As the hours slipped by and the lights continued their tranquil waltz, the world itself began to slow its pace. Time lost meaning, and with each passing moment, the boundaries between lake, sky, and all living things grew softer, until it was as though the very fabric of reality had been woven into a tapestry of pure serenity. And so, as the last rays of sunlight dipped beneath the horizon, casting an afterglow across the water like a benediction from above, the lanterns continued to twinkle and shine, their gentle light beckoning all who dwelled on the lake shores to surrender to its soothing radiance, to let go of all worldly cares and drift into a dreamless sleep, cradled by the peaceful lullaby of the floating festival. In a small cottage at the edge of a wheat field, where the warm sun dipped into the horizon and painted the sky with hues of gold and pink, there lived an old woman named Elara, who spent her days tending to the land, coaxing life from the earth as surely as the plants grew tall and strong under her gentle touch. The cottage itself was a haven, its stone walls infused with the scent of wild flowers and the soft creaks of its wooden beams, a lullaby in the stillness of evening. In the evenings, Elara would sit on the porch, surrounded by the rustling wheat, watching as the stars began to twinkle like diamonds scattered across the velvet sky, and she'd listen to the whispers of the wind, which carried secrets from far-off places, but spoke only softly, in hushed tones that lulled her into a state of peaceful reverie. The wheat field, too, held secrets, ancient stories etched into its golden stalks, whispers of long-forgotten harvest moons, and the magic that coursed through the land like an underground river. Elara knew these stories, for she'd spent her life learning from the earth, drinking in the wisdom of its seasons, and as the nights drew in, she felt the weight of those secrets settle upon her, like a gentle rain on parched soil. In this quiet place, time itself seemed to slow, allowing Elara to grasp it like a handful of sand, soft, fleeting, yet precious, as the moon rose high and the world grew dark, but not in a way that was ever frightening, for here, darkness was merely another facet of the world's intricate design. As she breathed in the scent of night-blooming flowers, Elara felt her eyelids growing heavy, her breathing slowing to match the pace of the crickets chirping, and her thoughts drifted like clouds across a summer sky, until finally, as the last wisps of light disappeared beyond the horizon, Elara's eyes closed, her body relaxed, and she let go of all worry and care, surrendering herself to the soft, endless expanse of sleep. In the quiet harbor where the boats went to sleep, the sun had set behind the hills, casting a warm orange glow over the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers that seemed to thrive in the soft mist that rolled in every evening, and the sound of crickets provided a soothing background hum, like 1,000 tiny drums beating out a lullaby. Among the boats, some were tall and sleek, their sails folded neatly against their masts, while others were smaller and more sturdy, their wooden hulls worn smooth by years of gentle rocking in the harbor's calm waters. As night began to fall, the stars started to twinkle above, like diamonds scattered across a dark blue velvet cloth, and the moon, now a silver crescent in the sky, cast a path of light across the water, illuminating the boats as they slept peacefully, their crew's dreams no doubt filled with the endless stories of the sea. And as the darkness deepened, a soft breeze began to stir, carrying on its gentle sighs the whispers of the harbor's secrets, tales of ships that had sailed in and out through the centuries, of treasures hidden beneath the waves, and of the mythical creatures said to roam the depths, their glowing scales shining like lanterns in the darkness. But as the night wore on, the wind died down, and the harbor grew quiet once more, except for the occasional creaking of a boat's hull or the soft lapping of the water against its sides. Sounds that blended together to create a symphony of peaceful slumber, a gentle rocking motion that seemed to match the beat of one's own heart. And as you listen now, feel your eyelids growing heavy, your breathing slowing down, and your thoughts drifting away on the tide. In a house with walls that whispered secrets in the night, there stood an attic that had been left untouched for years, its treasures scattered like stars across a velvet expanse of old trunks and forgotten dreams. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that seeped through the grimy windows, their delicate steps weaving a gentle melody that seemed to match the beat of a child's heartbeat, far off but growing louder with each passing moment. In this attic, where memories waited like sleeping flowers, a small wooden rocking horse leaned against an old cedar chest, its intricately carved mane a soft whisper of faded glory. Nearby, a porcelain doll lay cradled in her own tiny bed, her glassy eyes turned upward, as if watching for the stars to come out and twinkle above. On another shelf, a collection of worn wooden blocks gathered like miniature sentinels, guarding secrets of childhood that had long since slipped into the past. The air was heavy with the scent of old books and forgotten stories, each one waiting patiently to be rediscovered, its words whispering promise of enchantment and delight. As the night deepened, a faint rustling began to stir, like the gentle stirring of leaves on an autumn breeze, as if the very toys themselves were coming alive, their wooden limbs stretching, their painted faces smoothing into soft smiles. The attic was awakening, slowly, quietly, its treasures rising from slumber like a dawn breaking over a peaceful landscape. And in this quiet, dreamlike atmosphere, it was easy to let one's thoughts drift, to surrender to the soothing melody of dust and memories, to let go of all worries and troubles, as the soft rocking motion of the wooden horse seemed to lull the world into a deep and restful sleep. So breathe deeply now, let your eyelids grow heavy, feel your body relax, your breathing slow, as you sink deeper into the peaceful silence of this attic sanctuary. In a garden hidden from the world by a veil of trees, there bloomed a single patch of moonflowers that opened their delicate petals only when the night sky was at its fullest and the silver light poured down upon them like a gentle benediction. The gardener who tended to this enchanted place had long ago given up trying to cultivate other flowers alongside these rare and mystical blooms, for it seemed as though they fed on the very essence of the moon itself, their scent a sweet and heady perfume that wafted on the breeze only after sundown, when the shadows grew long and the world was at peace. The paths that wound through this lunar garden were paved with tiny stones, polished to a soft sheen by the nocturnal drips of dew, and as one wandered through the softly glowing pathways, it felt as though the very earth itself was exhaling its quiet contentment into the air, each step a gentle reminder that there existed in this world at least one place where time stood still, and the passage of hours could be measured not by clocks or calendars, but by the slow and steady climb of the stars across the midnight sky. In the stillness that preceded dawn's arrival, the moonflowers reached their zenith, their delicate trumpets bursting open to reveal inner petals, a deep shade of indigo that glimmered like dark pools of water beneath the starlight, drawing all who entered into their tranquil realm with an irresistible siren call to pause and breathe in the sweet, intoxicating fragrance that had wafted across the garden like a soft sigh from some unseen heart. As the night gave way to morning's gradual awakening, the moonflowers began to close their petals once more, folding their beauty within themselves as the world around them stirred into a new day. But for those who had chanced upon this mystical place under the light of the full moon, its memory remained like a lingering whisper in the mind, beckoning them back to return and surrender once more to its enchantment. In a secluded mountain valley, where the air was crisp and clean and snowflakes fell gently from a gray sky, there stood a small cabin that seemed to be wrapped in a soft white blanket. The fire crackled quietly inside, casting a warm glow on the rustic walls as the first flakes of winter began to settle around it, like a million delicate fingers tracing intricate patterns on the windowsills and the branches of the surrounding trees. In this peaceful haven, a young woman named Amelia sat in her favorite chair by the fire, watching the snow fall through the panes, her eyes growing heavy with each passing moment as she listened to the soft hush of the flakes against the roof, the gentle creaking of the wooden beams, and the sweet scent of pine carried on the breeze. As the hours slipped away like grains of sand in an hourglass, Amelia's thoughts turned to memories of her childhood winters spent here with her grandmother, playing in the snowdrifts and listening to tales of ancient magic that dwelled deep within these mountains, where the trees whispered secrets to each other on the wind. As she breathed in the scents of pine and wood smoke, Amelia felt a deep sense of belonging to this place, as if the cabin itself was embracing her with its warmth and tranquility, holding her close like a loving mother, rocking her gently back and forth into the rhythm of the snowfall, until the softness of the flakes outside seemed to seep into her very bones, filling her with an overwhelming longing for rest, for stillness, for a return to the peaceful silence that lay just beyond the edge of wakefulness. As she settled deeper into her chair, Amelia felt her eyelids growing heavy, like the snowflakes gently lapping at the windowsills, and she knew it was time to let go, to surrender to the soft, enveloping darkness that beckoned from outside, drawing her down into its soothing depths, where dreams would whisper secrets in her ear, and the mountains themselves would cradle her safe until morning. In a tiny chapel nestled between two great hills, where the road winds lazily through fields of silver-green wheat that shimmered like moonlight in the fading light of day, weary travelers might stumble upon rest and refuge from their long journeys. The chapel's stone walls were weathered to a soft gray, worn smooth by time, and countless prayers whispered within its sacred space, and its high windows let in shafts of gold and pink as sunset surrendered to twilight. Inside, the air was still and quiet, filled with the scent of old incense and wood polish, and a single flickering candle cast eerie shadows on the walls as it cast light upon the pews where pilgrims and wanderers had long sat in contemplation. The chapel's patron saint, a kindly woman with eyes like dark pools and hair like silver threads, gazed out from her alcove above the altar, watching over those who sought solace within its peaceful precincts. And here, in this haven of tranquility, weary souls might lay their heads upon the soft cushions and listen to the gentle soothisrations of the wind outside as it rustled through the wheat like a soothing lullaby, or drift off into dreamless sleep beneath the watchful eyes of the saint's patient gaze. For in this chapel, time itself seemed to slow its pace, allowing all who entered to unburden themselves of their troubles and trouble's weight, surrendering instead to the calming balm of peace that lay hidden like a treasure within these quiet stone walls. As the ferry slipped into the calm waters of the wide river, its engines dying down to a gentle hum, The passengers settled in for the long crossing ahead, cradled by the lapping waves against the hull and the soft creaking of the vessel's wooden frame, which seemed to rock in time with their own quiet breathing. The sky above was a deep shade of blue, like the inside of a shell, with just a few wispy clouds that drifted lazily across it, their edges feathery and indistinct, as if they were made of moonlight rather than cloud. As the ferry drifted further into mid-river, the water beneath its keel began to shimmer, like the surface of a pond on a summer's day. But this was winter, and the river was cold and dark, its depths hidden beneath a veil of stillness that seemed almost palpable. Yet even in its quietude, there was a sense of movement here, a gentle stirring of the water, as if something deep below was waking from a long slumber, and it was this subtle vibration that lulled the passengers into a state of dreamy relaxation, their eyelids growing heavy as they gazed out at the river's glassy surface. The ferry's wake stretched out behind it like a shimmering silver ribbon, vanishing into the distance as the boat chugged steadily on, carrying its cargo of sleep-hungry travelers across the water to the other side, where the moon would be waiting to welcome them in. As the hours passed, the stars began to twinkle above, like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse, and one by one they started to fade into the blue, leaving behind only a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from the river itself, a gentle reminder that even as we drift through our lives, carried on the currents of time, there is always peace waiting for us at the heart of things. So let your eyes grow heavy now, and feel the warmth spreading through your body, like the golden light of sunset on a summer's day, as you slip deeper into relaxation, carried on the gentle rocking motion of the ferry, further and further away from the world's cares, until all that remains is the sound of the river's soft voice whispering in your ear, a soothing lullaby to guide you home. In a small bookshop nestled between two quiet streets, where the soft glow of street lamps cast long shadows on the pavement outside, a single warm lamp shone like a gentle heart beating within. Its light, a soothing golden hue, filled the room with an air of tranquility, beckoning readers to linger over worn pages and forgotten tales. The shopkeeper, a wise and kind soul named Sophia, had chosen this very spot for her haven of words, knowing that the comforting glow would entice passers-by to pause and breathe in the sweet scent of old books. As dusk gathered outside, casting a serene twilight over the town, Sophia would settle into her favorite armchair, surrounded by shelves upon shelves of dusty tomes, their covers embossed with mystical symbols and faded illustrations of far-off lands. She'd wrap herself in a soft shawl, one threadbare patch revealing the delicate fabric beneath, and lose herself in the whispers of pages turned with reverence, the gentle rustle of leaves, the creaking of leather bindings, and the hushed conversations between characters long past, their stories unfolding like petals on a rose. With each turn of the page, Sophia's eyes would grow heavy, her thoughts drifting on the river of words to distant shores, where sun-kissed beaches beckoned, warm sands caressed feet, and waves sang lullabies in soothing harmony with the lapping of the tide against the shore. As night deepened, the bookshop grew quieter still, until only the soft hum of the lamp's gentle warmth remained, a steady heartbeat guiding dreamers into slumber, their souls anchored to the comforting light that shone like a sanctuary within. Now, let your own thoughts grow heavy, let your breathing slow, and feel the peaceful tranquility of this bookshop envelop you, carrying you on the soft tide of words to a place where rest and dreams await. In a village nestled at the bottom of a calm lake, where the sky was painted with hues of sapphire and amethyst, and the air was sweet with the scent of blooming water lilies, time moved in gentle rhythms. The villagers lived and breathed to the beat of the lake's quiet pulse, their days unfolding like the petals of a lotus flower, slowly opening to greet the sun. They would wake at dawn, when the mist still clung to the surface of the water, and walk along the shoreline, feeling the cool, dew-kissed grass beneath their feet. The soft lapping of the lake's waves against the shore created a soothing melody that lulled them into their daily routines, tending the gardens, harvesting the fruit trees, and fishing from wooden boats that skimmed across the glassy surface like ghosts. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the village, the air would grow thick with the scent of cooking fires and baking bread, wafting on the breeze like a promise of comfort and nourishment. And when night fell, the stars would twinkle above, reflected in the mirror-like surface of the lake, creating an endless expanse of twinkling lights that seemed to stretch on forever. The villagers would retire to their cozy cottages, feeling grateful for another day lived in harmony with nature's gentle pace. And as they drifted off to sleep, lulled by the lullaby of the lake's waves, they would whisper a soft thank you to the universe for its soothing melody, knowing that tomorrow would bring another chance to live in rhythm with the lake's calm heartbeat. And so, with full hearts and contented sighs, they would surrender to the darkness, their breathing slowing, their bodies relaxing, their minds releasing all worries and cares, as the gentle rocking of the night lullaby cradled them into a peaceful slumber. In the darkness of night, when stars were hidden behind a veil of clouds, and the moon was just a silver sliver in the sky, there rumbled a train that moved on tracks of its own secret path, far from the world's bustling streets and busy lives. It chugged along through tunnels of ancient trees, whose leaves rustled softly like whispers of forgotten secrets, and over trestles of worn stone that spanned rivers that flowed silently into the night like dark ribbons. The train was called the Lullaby Line, and it ran only under the cover of darkness, its headlights cutting through the shadows like gentle fingers tracing patterns on a wall. Inside, passengers lay quietly in their seats, lulled by the rhythmic rocking motion of the train, as if it were a cradle swaying gently to and fro. The air was filled with the scent of old wood and worn leather, comforting aromas that spoke of warmth and shelter from the cold, dark world outside. As the train rumbled along, its wheels singing a soothing melody on the tracks, the conductor, a kind-eyed man named Henry, moved quietly through the cars, checking tickets and offering cups of steaming tea to those who needed it, his presence as calming as a summer breeze. The passengers were a diverse bunch, but they all seemed to share a secret understanding, that this train was not just taking them from one place to another, but carrying them on a journey through the night itself, into the heart of dreams and rest. As the hours passed, their eyes grew heavy, and soon they were all reclining in their seats, the sound of the wheels on the tracks lulling them deeper and deeper into slumber. The train rumbled on, its path unwinding like a thread through the night, carrying its precious cargo of sleepy travelers towards dawn, when the world would slowly come alive again. And as you too feel your eyelids growing heavy, your breathing slowing, let the gentle rocking motion of the lullaby line carry you forward into the depths of sleep where rest and peace await, like a warm and welcoming haven in the darkness. In the quiet hours of dawn, when the last stars had faded from the sky like embers dying on the hearth, a traveler stumbled upon a humble inn that seemed to materialize from the misty veil of the forest. The sign above the door creaked softly in the morning breeze, bearing an image of a crescent moon and a pair of entwined vines, their leaves a deep, rich green. The windows, like empty eyes, stared back at the traveler with an air of gentle welcome, as if to say, "Come in, weary one, and rest a while." Inside, the fire crackled softly, casting a warm golden glow across the polished wooden floorboards, and the scent of baking bread wafted from the kitchen, carrying with it the promise of comfort and solace. The innkeeper, a wise and kind-eyed woman named Elara, greeted the traveler with a warm smile, her hands moving deftly as she poured a steaming cup of tea from a delicate, flower-painted pot. As the traveler sipped the sweet, soothing brew, they felt their weariness begin to seep away, like autumn leaves falling from a branch, and their eyelids grew heavy with the weight of restlessness dispelled. Ilara led them to a cozy room on the upper floor, where a plush velvet bed beckoned like a summer cloud, inviting them to sink into its softness and let the gentle hum of the forest lull them into slumber. The night outside seemed to settle around them, like a blanket woven from threads of silver and moonlight, gently swaddling the inn in an aura of peace and tranquility as the stars above twinkled softly, like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse, their gentle sparkle whispering, "Sleep now, dear one. Sleep deeply, knowing you are safe within these walls." The world outside receded, its troubles and cares forgotten, as the traveler let go of their last shred of consciousness, surrendering to the soothing allure of the inn's gentle magic, their breath slowing, their body relaxing, their heart filling with a deep, abiding peace. And in the silence that followed, only the soft crackle of the fire and the gentle hum of the forest remained, guiding them gently down into the realm of dreams. In a house where time was measured by the fall of soft snowflakes from the ceiling, an old woman named Elara lived surrounded by the quiet of winter's hold. The snow fell gently, its delicate touch drifting like feathers down upon her hands as she knitted in the warm glow of candles that lit the room with a soothing light. Outside, the world was shrouded in white, and yet within these walls the air was alive with an otherworldly calm, as if the stillness had seeped from the frozen sky into every fiber of her being. Ilara's fingers moved deftly, creating row upon row of intricate patterns in a fabric that shimmered with threads of silver and gold. The soft hiss of falling snow muffled all sound, allowing her to lose herself in the simple pleasure of creation, where the gentle hush was the only measure of time passing. In this cocoon of quiet, hours melted away like fleeting wisps of cloud on a winter's morning, leaving behind an atmosphere that was both ethereal and grounding. The old woman's eyes would sometimes drift from her work to gaze upon the snowfall, mesmerized by the whiteness that seemed to pulse with a soft blue light, as if it were imbued with a gentle life of its own. As she sat there, surrounded by the soothing beauty of this indoor winter wonderland, Alara felt a sense of peace settle over her like the falling snow, peaceful and slow, carrying all worries away on its silent, drifting touch. Her eyelids grew heavy, her thoughts untangling like threads in the gentle weave of a dream as she slipped into the stillness, guided by the soft whispers of the snowfall. In a small village nestled between two great hills, where the air was sweet with the scent of blooming heather and the sky seemed to stretch on forever, there lived a woman named Luna who had a special gift. She could find anything that was lost. People would come from all around, bringing their most treasured possessions, from delicate antique clockwork music boxes to beloved childhood toys, and leave them with Luna, trusting her to keep them safe until they were needed again. She would receive these objects with a gentle smile, her eyes sparkling like the stars on a clear night, and tuck each one away in a special place where it would rest, waiting for its return. Her home was a vast, whispery attic above the village shop, filled with trunks of soft, powdery dust, and shelves that stretched up to the cobweb-draped ceiling, laden with delicate jars, worn wooden boxes, and intricately carved stone containers. Each one held something precious, something lost but not forgotten, a grandmother's locket, a child's first book, a father's watch. and Luna would sit amidst it all, her fingers weaving through the objects, as if searching for something she knew was hidden, yet couldn't quite recall. Sometimes, when the moon was full and cast an eerie silver glow over the hills, Luna would begin to hum, a soft, wordless tune that seemed to match the gentle rustling of the attic's treasures. And as she hummed, it was as if the lost objects began to stir, their memories awakening like sleepy children on a winter morning. The air would fill with a sweet, nostalgic scent, and Luna's eyes would grow heavy, her breathing slow, until she would be drifting off to sleep among her treasured things, surrounded by the soft whispers of the past. And when she slept, it was as if the lost objects were guarding her, their presence weaving a gentle magic that wrapped itself around her, holding her safe and still in the quiet darkness. Now, dear listener, as you settle into your own bed, let Luna's humming guide you down to rest. Let the whispers of the past lull you into dreamland. May your heart be filled with peace, your spirit soothed by the gentle rustling of memories, and your slumber deep and refreshing, like a summer breeze on a still afternoon. Above the rooftops of Ashwood, where the moonlight is a silver mist, I sing a lullaby to the town's sleeping hearts. My voice carries on the gentle breeze like a soft petal on a quiet stream, and as it drifts through the streets, the houses seem to lean in, as if to listen closely, their chimneys rising like sentinels from the rooftops. In this way, I weave a spell of calm over the town, my words threading together the dreams of all who lie within, so that they may sleep peacefully and wake refreshed for another day. The night air is filled with the scent of blooming lilacs, their perfume carrying on the wind like a promise of spring's return, while beneath me the streets are empty and still, save for the occasional hooting of an owl or the distant rumble of a lonely train, its wheels whispering secrets to the night as it rumbles through the valley. In this tranquil scene I continue my song, my voice blending with the lullaby of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the darkness, all combine to create a soothing melody that envelops Ashwood in an atmosphere of serenity and quiet. And as the night wears on, the stars begin to twinkle overhead like diamonds scattered across the velvet expanse, their soft light casting shadows on the rooftops below, while I continue my lullaby, drawing the town ever deeper into the peacefulness that has settled over it like a gentle shroud. Let my song be your guide as you drift off to sleep, and may the night's tranquility envelop you in its soothing calm, carrying you gently on its tides of rest and relaxation, until you wake refreshed and renewed, ready to face another day in this world that is full of wonder and beauty. In a sea of warm turquoise where the sun dips slowly into the horizon, an island drifts gently on the tide, its lush green forest swaying in time with the lapping waves that caress its shores like a lover's tender touch. The island's name is Aria, and it has been carrying its cargo of trees and flowers across the water for centuries, its secrets and tales whispering softly to the sea as it drifts northward, ever northward, under the watchful eye of the stars that twinkle like diamonds in the vast expanse above. The air on Aria is filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and the soft song of a lullaby carried on the breeze from an unseen flute player whose notes dance among the swaying palm trees, weaving a spell of tranquility over the island's inhabitants, who live in harmony with nature, their days unfolding like the petals of a flower, slowly opening to greet the light. At dusk, when the sky is painted with hues of pink and orange, the people of Aria gather on the beach to watch the setting sun, its rays casting a golden glow over the waves as the stars begin to appear, one by one, in the darkening blue above. As night falls, the island's gentle heartbeat slows, and its inhabitants retreat to their homes, lulled by the sound of the surf and the distant music, their dreams infused with visions of Aria's tranquil beauty. The island drifts on, a tiny world of peace and serenity, lost in the vastness of the sea, yet somehow still connected to all that lies beyond. As you breathe in the scent of Aria's flowers, feel your own heartbeat slow, your thoughts untangle, and your body relax, letting go of the day's worries as the island carries you gently into the night, where rest and rejuvenation await, like a soft blanket wrapped around your dreams. In a small, forgotten studio nestled between two grand department stores, a painter sat at his easel, surrounded by canvases of empty waiting rooms. Soft morning light streamed through the grimy windows, casting a serene glow over the scene as he mixed colors on his palette, trying to capture the essence of stillness that pervaded these spaces. He'd never been inside any of these rooms, yet he felt a deep affinity for them, as if their blank walls and empty chairs held secrets that only revealed themselves in the silence. The painter's brush danced across the canvas, applying thin layers of paint to evoke the soft hush of air in these rooms, where time seemed to stand still between the moments of anticipation or departure. As he worked, his gaze drifted toward a large wall at the far end of the studio, where an almost completed painting hung, a waiting room with soft green walls and rows of matching chairs, each one occupied by a figure that seemed to fade into the mist of dawn. The painter's eyes followed the contours of the figures' faces, their features softened as if they were dissolving into the fog, leaving behind only a sense of presence. He set his brush down, stepped back from the canvas, and let his gaze wander over the studio, feeling the tranquility emanate from each unoccupied chair in the half-finished paintings, as if the rooms themselves were breathing, slow, steady breaths that synchronized with the beat of his own heart. In this peaceful atmosphere, where time lost its urgency and colors blended softly into one another, the painter felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders, allowing him to sink deeply into the tranquility of the waiting rooms. As his eyelids grew heavy and his breathing slowed in sync with the soft rustle of paint on canvas, he let himself become part of the silence that filled these empty spaces, his spirit merging with the peaceful atmosphere as night's dark veil softly descended outside, carrying the promise of restful sleep. In a small village nestled in the heart of a lush valley, where raindrops fell like delicate diamonds on the rooftops, there was a kitchen that glowed with a warmth that seemed almost otherworldly. On a drizzly evening, when the darkness outside felt like a soft blanket wrapping around the world, Emma slipped into her kitchen, letting out a sigh of contentment as she stepped onto the cool tile floor. She had spent the day huddled over her sewing machine, trying to coax some order from a chaotic patchwork of fabric scraps, but now she was free to let go and simply be. As she moved through the room, the flickering lights on the pendant above the kitchen table seemed to dance in time with her footsteps, casting shadows that were both familiar and mysterious. The air was heavy with the scent of fresh bread rising from the oven, a comforting aroma that transported Emma back to childhood summers spent baking with her grandmother. She slid open the kitchen window, allowing the rain to fall in soft patters on the counter as she watched the droplets cling to the rim like tiny lanterns. In the silence, Emma felt a deep calm settling over her, as if the gentle patter of the rain was soothing some secret worry away. As she poured herself a cup of steaming tea from the pot that sat always at the ready on the stovetop, the kitchen seemed to grow even cozier, the shadows shrinking back into their corners and the light growing brighter in compensation. In this peaceful atmosphere, where every sound was muffled and distant, Emma's eyelids began to feel heavy, her breathing slow as the rhythm of the raindrops outside lulled her deeper and deeper into the calm of a summer night. Her head nodded forward, her chin dipping toward the steam rising from her cup as the kitchen grew darker, softer, and sleepier, enfolding her in its gentle, soothing warmth. In a green valley nestled among hills of whispering grass, where wildflowers bloomed like scattered jewels in every color of the rainbow, a shepherd named Alara tended her flock with gentle care. She had known these sheep since they were lambs, and now they followed her to the same meadows and streams that their mothers had grazed before them. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the hills, Alara would lead them to the shelter of an ancient oak tree, where she'd spread out blankets of softest wool beneath which they'd sleep like one great quiet creature. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers and the low hum of crickets, while above, a full moon cast an ethereal light that seemed to seep into Alara's very bones as she watched her flock slumber. On nights when the wind whispered secrets through the grass and fireflies twinkled like tiny lanterns among the wildflowers, Alara would sit by the oak tree, weaving a tapestry of stories for herself and her flock, of long-ago days when the gods themselves had walked among mortals, and the earth was young and full of wonder. As she spoke in hushed tones, her words were carried away on the breeze, becoming one with the rustling leaves and chirping crickets, weaving a spell of deep peace that enveloped both shepherd and flock. The sheep would stir only when their bellies were full or the wind changed, but Alara's spirit would remain vigilant, watching over them as they dreamed of verdant pastures and sparkling streams, their gentle breathing and soft bleats blending with the lullaby of crickets to create a symphony that lulled the very earth into a deeper sleep. And when at last Alara closed her own eyes, feeling the weight of her weary bones, the moonlight casting its silvery glow upon her face, she would sink slowly into the soft darkness, cradled by the rhythm of nature and surrounded by the peaceful slumber of her beloved flock, guided by the quiet stillness that only this enchanted valley could provide. In a small, secluded cottage nestled among the whispering trees of a forgotten forest, there lived a gentle soul named Amelia, who tended the ancient, slow clock that stood in her parlor like a sentinel of time. The clock's face was worn and cracked, its hands moving with a deliberate slowness, as if each tick and tock held within it the weight of 1,000 years. For generations, Emilia's family had kept the clock running, oiling its intricate mechanisms and listening to its soothing heartbeat. And so, Amelia would sit in the evening light, feeling the rhythm of the clock seep into her bones, calming her spirit and stilling her mind. As the sun dipped below the treetops, casting long shadows across the room, Amelia would gently wind the clock's mechanism, coaxing forth a new symphony of gentle chimes that seemed to weave a spell of peacefulness over all who heard them. The clock was said to be enchanted, imbued with the magic of the forest itself, and many believed its slow ticks held the power to heal the weary soul. Amelia knew this was true, for she had seen it in her own life, how the clock's gentle rhythm would soothe her when sorrow came, or calm her racing thoughts when anxiety took hold. And as the night wore on, with the darkness outside deepening and the stars twinkling like diamonds in the sky above, Amelia would rise to tend the fire, adding more wood to the flames until the room was bathed in a warm golden light that seemed to emanate from the clock itself. As she settled back into her chair, the ticking grew softer still, hypnotic and lulling, drawing her into a world of quiet dreams and restful sleep. And so it was that Amelia's cottage became a sanctuary for weary travelers who would stumble upon its door in search of refuge from the turmoil of their lives, only to find solace in the gentle, rocking motion of the clock's slow heartbeat as it lulled them into a deep and dreamless slumber. As you two begin to relax, let Amelia's peaceful world wrap itself around you, the clock's soothing chimes weaving a spell that will carry you gently into the realm of sleep, where worries fade like morning dew, and your spirit is rejuvenated by the gentle tick-tock of this enchanted timekeeper. In the heart of a vast and silent night, a lone train rumbled through the darkness, its wheels creaking softly on the tracks as it carried its precious cargo of dreams to destinations unknown. The carriage was empty now, except for one gentle soul who had claimed the upper berth for themselves, wrapping in a soft blanket that shimmered like moonlight in the dim glow of the overhead reading lamp. Outside, the world slipped by in shades of indigo and midnight blue, the only sound the lulling rumble of the engine as it breathed its way through the stillness. The train's rhythmic sway rocked the carriage from side to side, a soothing cradle that seemed to mold itself to the contours of the sleeper's body, as if sensing their deepest longings for rest and tranquility. As the hours passed, the darkness outside deepened, like a rich, velvety cloak that enveloped all in its path. Yet within this carriage, time itself began to slow, becoming almost liquid and malleable, permitting the dreamer to slide into an ocean of sleep that would cradle them for the duration of their journey. The trees outside receded, the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered on black silk, and the train's gentle rocking motion became a universal heartbeat that synchronized with the sleeper's own pulsing lifeblood. As the miles slipped by, the dreamer felt their eyelids grow heavy, weighed down by an unseen force that sought to still all movement, to quiet all thought, and surrender them into the realm of the unknown. In this tranquil kingdom, worries and cares lost all significance as the train's soft chugging lulled the sleeper deeper until the rhythm became a mere whisper, barely audible above the silence itself. And so the dreamer drifted further out to sea on an endless tide of sleep, where they would be carried by the gentle hands of Morpheus to the shores of dreamland, where moonflowers bloomed in every color of the rainbow and waters sang lullabies of sweet forgetfulness. Here time stood still, yet moved ever forward, carrying all dreams and one quiet sleeper into a rest so deep it would defy tomorrow's dawn. Sleep. In the heart of a snowed-in lodge, where candles flickered softly in the stillness, I found myself drawn to the warm glow of the fireside, its golden light dancing across the icy windows like a gentle spirit. Outside, the forest slumbered, its trees etched against the dark sky like delicate pen and ink drawings, their limbs swaying softly in the quiet breeze, as if sharing a secret among themselves. I settled into the plush armchair beside the fire, feeling the weight of my worries slowly seep away with each crackle of the flames, as the soft hiss of steam rose from a cup of hot tea balanced on the edge of the stone hearth, its warmth embracing me like a gentle hug. The room was filled with the scent of simmering stew and roasting pine nuts, their fragrance mingling with the hint of snowflakes melting on the windowsills, creating an atmosphere so tranquil that it seemed to wrap itself around me like a soft blanket. As I sat there, the flames began to hypnotize me, their gentle dance weaving a spell of calm, drawing my gaze deeper into the heart of the fire, where shadows swirled and merged in a soothing symphony of light and darkness, until all that remained was the soft pulse of the flames themselves, beating out a lullaby of warmth and comfort, guiding me toward the threshold between wakefulness and sleep. In this peaceful sanctuary, time itself seemed to slow its pace, allowing me to surrender to the allure of slumber, as if cradled in a nest of moonbeams and starlight, where the world's gentle rustle and hush became my own personal lullaby, drawing me down into the soft darkness, deeper and deeper, until all that remained was the sweet stillness of sleep itself. In the quiet heart of a city where stone buildings slumbered beneath a soft blanket of night sky, there stood an old library that remained open all hours, its halls whispering with secrets and stories. Its walls were lined with shelves that stretched up to the ceiling like sentinels guarding ancient knowledge, their wooden surfaces worn smooth by countless hands that had touched them over the years. As the clock struck midnight, the last patrons left behind a trail of softly glowing lamps, casting a warm amber light upon the rows of books, making it seem as though the very pages themselves were radiating a gentle warmth. The air inside was heavy with the scent of old paper and leather, a comforting aroma that seemed to settle deep within the chest, calming the mind and soothing the soul.